gave myself 1 month to make a video completely from scratch, and that was the latest sitcom story, dry heaving water mains and regurgitating toilets. Yeah, the title's a bit of a drag, I know. The video itself covers my tips on how to survive the current global economic crisis, whilst also trying to get along with complete dunderhead strangers that you have to share the rent with. And in this video today, I'm going to share with you my notes on the production of the entire project, everything that went wrong and how we fixed them, even some sneaky tactics that we used to achieve impossible shots, and then finally a summary on the entire production's time and cost that it takes to make a video like dry heaving water mains and regurgitating toilets, and prove to you that you can do it too. Just like last time, there's a lot for us to talk about, so I will break this up into 5 segments and try to keep it easy. But unlike last time, I want to add an extra element. I think it's important for you to be able to self-reflect on your works and what you've been able to accomplish, and be brutally honest about how you feel about what you've been able to accomplish on your projects. And so, for this video, I'm going to be self-evaluating how I think I've been able to perform for each segment, ranking it from 1 through to 10, and hopefully I can keep my ego in check, and by the end of this video, my head only grows to the size of Mexico. Let's start with segment 1, props and special effects. I don't think it would be an overstatement to say that the props development for this project was exceedingly good for a beginner. But that doesn't mean I don't have a couple nitpicks, like red food coloring. Why does it get everywhere? Why is it on my hands? Just use gloves. Paint in a spray bottle. Not a can, a bottle. Yes, the universal language for evicting cats off kitchen benches. Anyway, bottle and paint. You don't want to use paint that is too thick or too wet. It gets stuck in the bottle, it clogs up, and then it explodes. Like when using too much toilet paper for a number 2, or a potato gun. Or any gun, actually, for that matter. They all kind of work the same. Or else, you'll end up with clumps of paint on your artwork, like this. Admittedly, it was a happy accident for me. Now, one thing that really set me back was when I tried to use masking tape to line the areas that I wanted to spray paint. At the beginning, I made 2 mistakes. I didn't pat the tape down enough, or I'd spray a little too much in the one spot, causing the paint to run like water underneath the tape, and then I'd get these ugly streak marks that made everything look, well, ugly. An easy solution for that is to be light and delicate with your layers of spray. And a good thing to remember is that it is still a liquid inside. And have you ever tried to stick water to water? No, because you can't fucking do it. So if you spray too much paint, instead of it sticking to the dry surface, it's just going to slide like water on a slide. And yes, the liquid will leak under your tape because it has mastered the art of flow like water. But that wasn't the worst of the tape. The worst part was when I finally finished the Australia mask after many hours of torture on trying to perfect this damn thing. I finally got it. I then removed the tape from the mask, and then the tape removed the mask from the mask. Yes, you heard that correct, and I did lose my marbles over it, but everything was within my control, and I could have avoided it by waiting for the layers of spray paint to dry properly before sticking the tape to it. However, if you find yourself in this situation and you're starting to freak out because you think now you have to start all over again, there are actually a few things that you can do to fix this. Step 1. Do not throw a tantrum and lose your shit. Stay calm under pressure and take a break if needed. Step 2. Collect the strands of paper that you just threw all over the room out of anger. Then slowly and carefully peel back the pieces of the canvas, paper, etc. until you have all the torn pieces off of the masking tape. Now it's time to play a jigsaw puzzle with your art piece until you find where all the broken bits are supposed to fit. Then grab a brush and a matching paint and use it to glue those pieces back to your art piece. Then with a little bit of brushwork and, choosing the right angles during filming, you can almost hide your mistakes. Almost. If you look hard enough, you'll probably notice it still, however, and if that bothers you, then I guess you're gonna have to start all over again, and this time, wait for it to dry. The props for this one exceeded my expectations by a large margin. They just all looked absolutely fabulous. However, unfortunately, my effort wasn't as good because my art table was sitting up in my lounge room for 2 straight weeks and I only touched it 4 out of 14 days. And then the tree prop took me a whole 8 weeks for me to get the motivation to pull it out of the cupboard. And for those reasons in particular, I'm going to give my effort a 6.5 out of 10, and I'm going to give the results of that effort a 9 out of 10, because my God, were those costumes not great. Filming. And I'm going to start this off with saying, I know, I did it again. I didn't use my white card. In fact, I didn't use it once. I'm not even using it right now. But it's not like I don't have a white card. I do. I really do. See? Right here. White card. But I didn't use it. And now, the Bushman looks like a Smurf. It's an easy solve in editing, however, if you know how to do color correction, just a little less blue hue here, and fix. But God almighty, just use your white card. It saves you so much time in editing. It takes you maybe 5 seconds to hold that card up. It takes you maybe a minute to color correct it every single time if you know what you're doing. Just remember, right? White card, white card, white card, white card, white card! Now, I had a few things marked down in the filming section that I wanted to talk about, like the narrator's lounge, and the tap angles, and also the first person point of view, but I decided to crush that all down into one topic: framing. No, not the framing inside of your household, but like the framing inside of your household, your framing is the structure of your entire shot. So if you don't do it right, everything just falls apart. Sometimes it's not always obvious, however, like the tap shots, for example. In the video, you can see that it starts to rotate anti-clockwise and then suddenly it jolts clockwise. And then, right as the spinning is about to end, you can see the frame pull a full 180 degrees as it slows down for my reaction. Admittedly, the flip is an editing issue, but the rotation, that's a framing issue. Now, the second framing issue occurs every time we visit the narrator in the narrator's lounge. I was actually aware of this issue, however, during the filming, but I had already set up the entire scene and the camera settings for the focus, so I decided to just work with it. Despite the fact that the frame was cutting off half the narrator's head, I still managed to make it look good. Or, decent. I think it looks good. And if framing is a problem for you, however, you can always just try to imagine it in your head first. And if you're the kind of person who struggles trying to imagine those sort of things, what the hell are you doing making videos? But seriously, just try sketching it out first so that you can get the right idea on what you need, like this. Or you could just try this. Yes, this actually has a purpose. Whatever you see inside your fingers is your framed shot, and once you have that figured out, you can set your cameras up to capture the perfect shot of your choosing. The best part about it is, this is entirely free, as long as you still have your hands. But anyway, the filming for this one was actually pretty good, a far better improvement than my Cinderella story. You know what else was a far better improvement? How much of it I actually had. However, that doesn't mean that my effort matches up to that, because unfortunately I didn't have a single thing filmed until the final week of production. Not because I was busy, but because I knew I could get it all done in the last week, which is no excuse for laziness. So because of that, I'm gonna have to give my effort a mediocre 5 out of 10, but I'll give the results an pretty good 8 out of 10. Segment 3. Audio. Audio is my biggest enemy. It always gives me the biggest headaches out of everything, and this time is absolutely no exception to that rule. So I will start off with what I call the 459 error. When I was editing my audio and my sound effects for dry heaving water mains and regurgitating toilets, I was importing them into Premiere Pro expecting to see the delightful sign of audio waves appear. However, for certain individual clips, I was unfortunately heartbroken. And if you can't read between the lines, let me make it simple. There were no lines. The audio had completely disappeared. The worst part about this, however, and the most frustrating thing, was that every single clip was coming in at about 4 minutes and 59 seconds long, even for the clips that I knew shouldn't have been more than a minute itself. But this little error of mine wasn't actually an error at all. At least, not in the programming. It was in fact an error found within me.
So if you've ever used an editing software once in your life, you've probably learned what tracks are, and those are these grey bars down here with all the colourful lines on them. However, if you've never learnt what a track is, let me explain it for you. A track is essentially like a cake, right? You can layer tracks on top of each other. Whatever's at the top of the cake, you'll see that one first. Anything that's bigger or bleeds out below it, you'll also see those. However, if they're all the same size, then you'll have to go digging through it in order to find it. When it comes to audio, however, it works a little bit differently. When the audio is laid on top of each other like a cake, you'll actually hear them all at the same time, which can become quite annoying when you're trying to edit your audio and make it sound the way that you would like it to sound. So an easy fix for that is this little button here with the S, right? When you activate it, at least on Premiere Pro, it turns yellow. And then when you play the video, right, you'll only hear the track that the solo button is active on. Why? Because when the solo button is active, essentially all it does is it mutes everything else except that track. And you can change it, right? So that you can hear the track on a different line. And then, voila, you can then isolate the audio that you want to hear and edit it the way you'd like.
Now, I use an audio editing program that has the exact same button on it, and I tend to use it a lot so that I can hear what changes I'm making to the individual clip itself. And then I export it and I move on. Now, the problem would occur when I would go to export my audio for tracks that I knew did not need to be edited. This led to me not changing which tracks had the solo button active on them. And when you export audio that don't have the solo button active on them, it will export absolute silence because technically that track is muted. But when you export the clip, the length of that clip will be just as long as the track that you've currently got the solo button active on. A very, very specific problem that thankfully you now have the solution to, thanks to my pain. There are a few other problems that I had during the audio for this one, like for example, my voice not matching between different scenes. Either it was too high, too low, the volume didn't match up. I've collected my juice shards, then I realize, no kettle. It's pretty much self-explanatory at this point. I ditched the Bics and off with the cop. And honestly, that's just a fault on my end. But a nice change of pace is that my effort was absolutely fabulous. Everything from sound effects to the voice to just everything. I put in so much effort and so much work and it paid off. And so because of that, I'm going to give my effort a fantastic 10 out of 10. But I'm going to give the results a pretty decent 7 out of 10, which isn't horrible. It just means that I have a lot of improvement to make. Segment 4, Ed.it editing. I love the editing for dry heaving water mains and regurgitating toilets because I think it is the best I've done yet. And I know I don't have a lot of videos to compare that to, but still, awesome. And instead, I do not want to talk about something that went wrong or a mistake. I want to talk about something that went right. So, maybe you've realized this by now. Maybe you haven't. But the production team here is very small. In fact, it's usually only one person. me, with 2 to 3 recurring figures and the occasional guests. Because of that limited help, I have a lot of shots where I'd like to have more than one person in them, but I only have one person available.
So, you may notice that I tend to have a twin. That is completely fabricated.
Anyway, the way I like to achieve this feat of movie magic is by taking multiple shots with the same camera in the exact same position, like so. The Bushman is all the way over there in the ground, rolling around like a pig, and the landlord's bitch is over here pushing the lawnmower.
First things first, you want to grab your clips from over here and drag them onto the timeline. Make sure you have one above the other, just like this. Then you want to select the abovemost clip, this one. Then go over here, go into the effects control panel, and then go down to opacity where you have these 3 options. Click on the one that looks like a pen. Then using that, you go over here, click your points, just like this. I'm going to make a square, and this is what creates your masks. Boom, bam, kadam. Alright, now, all you have to do is move your mask into whatever position you want, just like this, and now let's scroll back a bit, and let's click play. Now, you can see that we have 2 me's in the one spot, but you don't want to let them touch each other, otherwise this'll happen. And they'll start to no-clip out of reality like it's the backrooms.
Now, how does this work? Well, think of the mask as like a cookie cutter. Basically, you can use it to cut out a small section of your film in the shape of the mask. Anything that falls outside of that shape disappears. And if you have any layers below, then they will now become visible where that mask has been cut. I could keep going on and on and on about masks, but that sounds like a video for another day, as I fear today I might overload your brains, and they might start to melt, and visceral might go everywhere, and we could be all horrified and brain dead for the rest of our lives. Overall, I haven't got anything bad I want to say about the editing, but that doesn't mean that it's perfect. You know, there are a few small kinks for me to figure out here and there, but overall I'm going to give my effort a pretty good 8.5 out of 10, and I'm going to give the end results pretty much the exact same rating. Segment 5. Production. Alright, so what happened in production? I've got a bit of a list, but I'll try and keep it quick. Firstly, there are a few shots in dry heaving water mains and regurgitating toilets that felt a little bit out of place, like the Bushman on the ground and the drinking milk shot. Clearly, the Bushman wasn't always intended to be wearing shorts, and I don't think people just casually have sheets of plastic taped to their head when drinking milk. These were just a few last-minute add-ons that I had to add due to poor planning on my end. 1. I forgot completely about the drinking milk shot, and that I was going to need to pour some milk on a paper mache mask that I needed for future shots, and I had no backups of. So I decided to grab a sheet of plastic and tape it to the forehead, because that's all I could do to save the mask and prevent it from being damaged, which I would later go on to undo by dumping a cake's worth of flour onto it and then realizing that it all stuck to the paint. Good job me. Woo. And secondly, I forgot where exactly it was I was posting these videos, because I can't just go casually around wearing nothing but a bush skirt and underpants and then post these videos to the YouTubes, because YouTube doesn't really like seeing skin unless you do yoga classes. And that brings me to my second production issue, and it is that I didn't even read the very screenplay that I myself wrote. And this led to an issue where I would have several extended video clips thinking that I had timed it perfectly for the script, but I would later on go to edit the video together to realize that I would have to make some cuts and try and make it look seamless. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. It really sucks to be in Australia sometimes because it gets way too hot here, and when you're on set, that can really start to take a toll on everyone's mental. People don't think straight, they get overwhelmed easy, they burst out with excruciating headaches, and just overall perform less. And that is why it is a good idea to keep plenty of methods stockpiled on set so that you can keep everyone as cool as possible for as long as possible while recording. Take plenty of breaks and always try to keep some air blowing on your face, and if you have them available, store plenty of ice packs so that you can rub them on your body if absolutely necessary to keep your body temperature down. And if all else fails and you can't keep your body temperature down, just remember, it is always okay to say, cut. Sometimes production doesn't go perfectly, and it's okay to put things on hold, because if you aren't working at your best, how is the production going to be the best? Overall, I wish I could say that the production went well, but for reasons I've already stated, such as bad organization, poor time management, and just, lazy, I cannot do that. And unfortunately, I'm going to have to just give my effort a pretty lousy 1 out of 10.
Ooh.
And the end results of the production, I'm going to give a 2 out of 10.
Ooh.
Segment 6? Hi. So, for this video, I mentioned that I had a secret 6th segment that I wanted to talk about. And I'm going to be labeling it as mental health or work ethic. I haven't really figured out which one I want to call it yet. But let's start off with the mental health side of it and the attitude on set. As I have mentioned a fair few times in this video, a lot of things went wrong. Like, a lot of things went wrong. And I didn't put myself in the best positions to really deal with any of that. I would sometimes lash out. Sometimes I would want to cry. Sometimes I would scream my lungs out until I lost my voice, and then I'd want to cry. Sometimes I had my own friends try to give me tips, advice. They tried to help me out, but I was too lost in my own emotions to really give them the light of day or really care. And it didn't really make for a good environment, which is why I wanted to bring this self-reflection part into this video to try and keep myself in check, but also to make light to you, anyone out there who wants to do this sort of thing, who wants to take on this role of making big projects, taking the lead and stuff like that. Sometimes you just, as the person in charge who is giving out orders, talking to people, guiding the process along, sometimes you just need to know when to shut up. Sometimes you need to learn that you need to be questioned, that you aren't always right, that other people are there to help, and that sometimes you need to listen to the people around you. And if all else, nothing else works, it's okay to walk away and come back another day. Another day when it's not as hot, when you have had time to research why does the audio keep screwing up at 4 minutes and 59 seconds. When you have your answers and you've calmed down and you have a game plan. Sometimes it's okay. You
You don't have to have all the answers all the time. But it's no reason, it's no right to take those emotions out on other people around. Because all you do is you just hurt yourself, and you hurt the people around you too. And if you don't become open to the idea that you just need to have a little humility in yourself, then you could very well ruin everything that you're trying to build. And with that, I think that concludes this video. So, there was a lot of things that I wanted to talk about, like a lot, but for the sake of retention and the time of this video, because I want you to watch it, of course, I need to cut it there. But keep your eyes out for some shorts, as I am very sure to be making some of those, and there might be a few more helpful tips along the way. But for now, let's wrap it up.
Dry heaving water mains and regurgitating toilets took 36 days of production, technically 80, from start to finish, completely from scratch. The total budget spent on the video was $402.10, and the total average cost of all equipment involved per project is currently $6,396. I told you that number would get better, and it will only continue to get better. But for now, that's a wrap, and I'll see you in the next video. Ciao, ciao.